Jane, can you give us a quick picture of Egeria and where sustainability sits within the firm's overall investment approach?
Yes, I can. I just heard that the word journey has been used very often. So I wanted to use the word that we've been on a journey. So when they came to me for the question about ESG, it was kind of more like an external exercise with external consultants. And we've kind of moved it back inwardly into the organization and made it very, very small and very practical in the beginning. And now we're starting to kind of see if we can leverage it a little bit more within the investment team as well, because that's the kind of end goal to get everybody involved. But we have an ESG committee who does, most of the work for now. But we are finally there to extend it into the investment team as well.
Perfect. So the SDG framework is well known, but not everyone uses it in such a structured way. Can you walk us through how the pick three model actually works? How does a portfolio company choose their three, and what does Egeria's role look like in that process? And we have them up on the slides now, so you can see
Just
all seven.
uh, yeah, so a little backstory. When Egeria asked me to okay, can you help us with our ESG strategy? They actually did hire external consultants to measure hundreds of KPIs at their portfolio companies, which in essence you could say is really, really good. But to be honest, gathering so much data, it would just be placed in a drawer and then suddenly it's a year past and there was just so much data that it kind of didn't deliver anything in actionable steps. For me, ESG was kind of new back then in that sense that I don't have a lot, I'm not a specialist in ESG. But from my strategy background, it's like, okay, how can we actually make this simple and actionable? So going through there's so many metrics, there's so many frameworks. I finally landed at the SDGs. And yes, it's mainly policy, you could say, for countries. But I landed with this because it's 17. It's been used worldwide. And it's something that we use more like a framework instead of like saying, if you pick SDG 13 climate action, you have to set these goals. It's more like we have the same language. So we picked this because it's a little bit simpler than all the other frameworks out there. And then what we have asked ourselves as well, because that was my number one rule. If you ask it for your portfolio companies, you have to do it for yourself as well and set an example. Is if you look at the SDGs, if you think we've also talked a little bit about it at that table, there's like different layers you can look at from sustainability, like what does impact really mean? So you have like compliance, you have like improvements you can make, and you have real impact that you want to do. So that's kind of the three layers that I took and asked everybody to look at the SDGs and be like, okay, if you could only pick three to narrow it down, which ones would make true impact? And not, it's easy to say like, yeah, we'll do this and it's just a compliant thing, or it's something that you can improve in 1 year. So we said those are all nice and those are amazing, but if I really challenged you, what are three SDGs, like categories you could say, where your company can make a true impact, but also asking them, look along your value chain, not just for yourself. And also, it's already been discussed today as well, don't look only at your risk perspective, but if you look at opportunities as well, but also motivation, both in the company, their employers, like what is something that you also want to make an impact in, so that it's not just from a compliance or a risk perspective, but it's a long-term thing. So we also said impact is something that will take years. So it's also good when you pick something that you actually can't do within a year, because otherwise it's an improvement goal. That's not an impact goal. So again, we try to make it very tangible, challengeable, but also like if you pick an SDG, it doesn't mean you have to follow the rules that the UN says that climate action number 13 means. It's just that you have one language within, I mean, we have 23 companies, if I'm correct at the moment. And if you want to let them speak in the same language, you have to pick something. It doesn't have to be the Sustainable Development Goals. It's just something that I thought was easy. And you see it in a lot of reports, a lot of people refer to it. But just pick something that's easy to choose and it gives everybody the same language. So that's why in the end, we just not randomly, but seemingly randomly, chose the SDGs as the main framework for everybody.
Mm. Well, I think you've kind of already touched on this, but we'll just to kind of close the loop on the SDGs in general. So how do you ensure those 3 SDGs don't just become a nice slide in a board pack? And what does embedding them in day-to-day operations actually look like across a 5 to 7 year holding period?
Yeah, so that's a challenge, and of course. But I've made like a presentation with slides that they can use that have different kinds of questions. Very, very simple. I mean, framework is nearly too big of a word for what we made. Um, but we really want them to think about, okay, if you pick an SDG, why did you pick it? So the first question is like, why? So what does it do for your company? Why are you going to make an impact in there? And then we said, okay, if you have your why, think about 3 to 5 goals that you can set until 3 to 5 years. So if you've set your goals, okay, what are the targets and the results that you want to gain? Okay, so what kind of projects do you need to put in place? And then what kind of KPIs do you attach to it? So we kind of flipped the script of gathering loads of KPIs and said, no, why? And what are the goals, the targets, and then the KPIs? And what do you need in place? And we have like a slide of like, okay, so what are the milestones in the coming 3 to 5 years? So it's, again, not rocket science, to be very honest, but it's like making it very simple again, and trying to make them not only have, like, some are further along the ESG road than others, and some make beautiful aspirational goals. And they were like, okay, but what does it mean? So we really try to make it, in that sense, again, I think simple, read the word that I say 100 times. But what does it really mean? And what are you actually going to do? So the whole philosophy, also going back to the SDGs, why we picked it, is we believe that if you do 3 things really well, it's better than to have like 100 things you do and do them half. So it's actually trying to rein them in, which is kind of the trick, instead of like, yeah, and then we're going to do this and that and this, which I mean, I'm also in favor of, but this kind of makes it so simple that you actually have to do things. And then within, the board meetings, you actually have a monitor slide or you have an evaluation, because it's made so concrete and tangible that you can actually discuss it and monitor it in that sense.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Perfect.
hope that answers.
Yes, yes. So now kind of shifting towards the PE angle. So sustainability is sometimes treated as separate from the investment thesis, more of a reporting requirement than a value driver. Has Egeria found a way to make these SDG commitments genuinely relevant to value creation and LP conversations?
Um, Still working on it as well. I think what's good to mention is when we started out with the SDGs, all the laws and regulations weren't completely clear yet. I know they're still also changing and up in the air. But we quickly, half year in, realized that for us, the SFDR got into place. And for some of our companies, or in the end, most will have the CSRD. So we also knew that we had to collect a lot of data. So that's how we got into the journey with key ESG. But because we already set the scene with SDGs, we kind of let it linger for 2 years, because we had to get everybody on board on the tooling, which was a push and pull. It did help to say, like, guys, we can't help it. We have to comply to the SFDR. So I'm sorry. So we had to push a little bit for all the data collection, something we actually wanted to go away from. But now we are at the place where we can go back to the SDGs as a foundation, as an opportunity and motivational perspective, and combine it with the data that we have now so that the goals and targets actually make sense. Because to be honest, if we go back 3.5 years ago, um, I didn't know that if you don't have a baseline of data, some of the goals and targets don't really make sense. And then you get to the part again, they sound nice. But now we actually also have the data. So now it's like a great combination. And that's this year where we are now. So the proof is in the pudding for next year, that you can use the data to actually fuel um, the choices they made for what are their like three main impact goals. So we also needed that data. Um, Again, not the world today, like everything, but now the combination I think will put us in a place now that you can actually monitor more concisely if the goals and targets are realistic, and you can track it now. So that's also good. I think it's a crucial part.
Yeah, yeah. I'm thinking of extra questions that I have as we're
Good way.
I need to, yeah, write something down. But I'll carry on with these. So has the bar shifted from LPs and buyers when it comes to sustainability data and evidence? Are you seeing this change due diligence conversations?
I don't know. I think it will come.
Mm.
We have been getting a lot, which is also mentioned in the AI discussion, loads of LP questionnaires, and they're all different. They are asking the same kind of. So I think a lot of LPs are also following the laws and regulations. I think we all are, in essence, because yes, the compliance needs to be good. I think moving forward that you will see in more exits that it will be an opportunity or a business value creation aspect. We are just moving forward to getting ESG into the DD phase, like in a more significant, relevant way. So we are moving towards it. I haven't seen any consequences yet, to be very honest, but I think everybody is also just figuring it out and trying to do their best and preparing for things that we all don't really know what's ahead. But having seen real consequences or pressure, I haven't seen it.
Okay,
Just lots of questions.
I won't tell anybody. Okay, now moving on to some reflections, which I think you're excited about. These. So, what's been harder than you expected, either in getting portfolio companies to engage seriously or in measuring progress in a way that's actually meaningful?
Yeah, so in all honesty, I really had to push and pull a lot with the companies and also a little bit in the investment team. To be honest, I think there's just lots of things going on, especially when you buy a company, and we want to put ESG within the first 100 days as well. But there's so much going on that the priority is a little bit different. I think the trick here is to slide it in year by year and making it also for them like small and doable. And with the portfolio companies now, I see that in the first year there was lots of trouble or like resistance because they don't believe you when I say, yeah, but the questions in key, like especially the S and the G, they're like, it takes you 1 hour or 2 hours. And then they look like, no, it's not true. But now that everybody's gone through the ringer, they're actually, oh, it's quite easy, actually. Yeah, it's quite good. And now some of the companies are actually moving towards, oh, this is interesting. I can actually see progress. So I think, again, as soon as people see what it actually, that it can help them and that it looks daunting, but once start moving the train, it's not that daunting. I will say our companies are not on CSRD yet, which I think might be much bigger than the SFDR and the EDCI, which we are part of. So we'll have to cross that bridge when we get there. But we do think that everybody's now, because it's not too difficult, you kind of are happy with your performance. And if you feel good and you see the outcome, then you want to do an extra step. So it's getting easier now, and it's just pushing and pulling, and also not we are forcing it on them. But I kept on also trying to explain the context of why we are doing it and why it's relevant. Yeah, it just takes time. And now we're moving on to the investment team and trying to get it into a category of like, it's not another tick in the box. It's actually going to help you. And I think as soon as we've had the first exits, when it actually made sense and it actually was an uptick, I think people would be like, oh, that's interesting. So it just takes time.
Yeah.
It really does.
Sounds like you've made it very bite-sized for that, everybody.
Yeah, and then you can celebrate your wins, and then it's easier to keep it moving and secretly stacking up a little bit more.
And then it'll be CSRD.
And then they're ready.
Yeah.
And it's not such a big like, oh, what do we need to do now? Then they're already on the train.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's always been the goal.
Okay. So if you were to start this program again today, is there anything you'd do differently from the outset?
Yes. Well, yes and no. I don't know. If I could, in the best scenario, I would engage the investment team or the managers. Like we in our ESG committee, we have the managing partner. Like everybody on top is all there. But the ones that are actually doing most of the nitty-gritty daily operational work are the investment managers, and I'm only getting there now. And if it would have been possible to, I mean, that would be my learning, to engage them a little bit quicker, um, and take them along the ride of why it's also an opportunity, or just from a motivational, feeling good perspective. I think that would have been one thing that I would do quicker. And also something we haven't had the time for yet is sharing best practices within the portfolio. Because we have some companies that are actually really good and far along, and we have companies that have no clue. And I think if you bring them together, so sometimes on a CFO day, we have like a little ESG thing. And then when they sit together at a table, they're exchanging. And it's not us saying, you have to do this. It's their, peers, and they really learn a lot from each other. So I would actually do that quicker and more, because I think that's easier to hear it from another company than the P's telling you you need to do it. It's different. It just lands, and they have more experience with it as well. So those are two things that I would definitely do sooner. Yeah.
Okay, and to finish up, for the sustainability and finance leaders in the room who are thinking about how to make sustainability more operational rather than aspirational, what's one thing from Egeria's experience you'd want them to take away?
Well, I still believe in the philosophy. Do three things really well. And then maybe after 3 years, you pick three other things. But I think it really helps that if you see the tangible outcome of something, then you want to do more. So, and also another one, like have a baseline. So sometimes for some companies, they would say, yeah, we're going to be net zero. I'm like, do you know what it means? And you don't have a lot of carbon. So, like, some things sound really nice. Um, and we're always trying, like the SDGs, no, everybody can pick their own, right? So for our portfolio company, every company is different. And it's really important that they can differentiate to make it truly their own, to ensure the biggest impact, but then make it really small, actionable, and celebrate every step that you make. And of course, we have lovely tools like ESG that can help us also with all the necessary data that we do need to collect. But I really do believe that if we can make it, small and actionable, you actually move the needle. And it might not be a big bang. Like sometimes, if it's possible, please do the big bang, but it's often not. So then just moving the needle every day and taking everybody along, just step at a time. I think that's how we, create a ripple effect, and also make it foundational, because then it's really rooted in the organization and people are actually doing things because it's doable, because its size, is not too big, and the dissolution will also be smaller. Like if we aim for the moon, it's also good, but if you don't get to the moon, then you're like, oh, whatever. So making it, yeah, sizable and actionable.
Perfect. Those are all of my questions. Though I've thought of a few more, but I would love to open up to the room if there's any questions for Jane. Well,
Okay, Annemarie can go first.
Well, to hear, has there been, which which as a maybe a case example, one company where maybe they were initially skeptic, but then they really rallied around all the goals, and it has led to them. Hey, this is actually a way for them to celebrate those wins.
I think actually the one we piloted with Fletcher, it's like a hotel business, and they actually gained a lot from it. First of all, they're like, ugh, that's so much data, and blah, blah, blah. Um, but they have so many assets and so many things that they need to think about. And they also, what I think was nice is they, and most companies actually have that, they actually do quite a lot, but it's never really gathered. Like this department knows they're doing this department knows they're doing that. And because they took a moment to kind of really get everything together, like, oh, we're actually doing quite a lot. So once you start gathering the data or asking them to pick the 3 SDGs and sit with it for a while, it also showed them that they were actually doing quite a lot, but they didn't have the overall picture. And this kind of gave them the push of like, oh, now we can build upon that. Oh, and because we're doing that, we can actually also bring that together. So, and it can be small things from the plastic usage in rooms or at breakfasts, etc. But because it was so visible now, it actually made it easier to challenge themselves to do more because they were like, oh, we actually do quite a lot of interesting things, but they didn't really have a notion of what they were all doing. And now they were like, okay, we can actually challenge ourselves and we can track it way more. And then there's other companies that are way more complex. I mean, lessons hotels are quite tangible. Um, but yeah, they're a great example of like, actually, yeah, also because they were seeing it now and they were taking their time with it. And then it's also nicer to be like, okay, how can I challenge myself? So
And Jessica, what do you think about management incentives inside the companies? Big queen, or is it a risk of, uh, in the long run, making the team only link to their incentive and not seeing the bigger future?
yeah, it's on our agenda for a long time. Um, I think it could help. We are having the discussions about if you want to do it. You could also argue that you have to be internally motivated. So it's always the question of like, do you need to put external pressure or punishment, you could say, or an internal motivation? So what we're trying to do now is weave it a little bit more into their daily operations so that you kind of have to do it from an internal workflow perspective. So that's the strategy for now, and we'll see how that develops. And I think putting it as an incentive could work, but I think we're trying to see it as a last resort, and trying to embed it into the workflow. So now we're moving towards more DD phase as well. And I think as soon as it's more top of mind and you start to have more discussions about it, it becomes more of an automatic business element. And we're trying to make it a natural business element instead of something we can be praised or punished for. So that it's just the same as all the other elements that you have to take into account. So that's kind of the route we're taking now. So no clear answer if it's better or not, but that we've decided not for now, at least. Yeah.
Do you, is there kind of like a critical max, you would say, the size of an organization where they pick the 3 goals and then potentially different teams take sub goals? Like, what would you say is this something you could apply to a business unit, or does it have to be a whole company?
We've done it for the whole company. Well, it depends on what kind of company you have, but we have like a painter's company and they have all these little kind of companies that are attached to it. But the main head office, because they're doing all in the same business, they collected their questionnaire and data and wishes from all the other companies, and then they just decided that they have 3 for all of them. But they do give each sub company, you could say, the freedom that within the categories, within the 3 SDGs, how they want to achieve it. So that is also an option to do that. So for Egeria, they also have like different business units, you could say. So we picked 4 actually, um, and we set guidelines. But we said every business unit within the 4 SDGs, they can have their own goals, targets, and KPIs. So that's how we work with it. And within each company, we also say like the head has to report to us which 3 or 4 it is. But you can, of course, also set overall guidelines so each business unit can have their own ways of working with it. I hope that answers.
Yeah, no, this is because I'm just thinking like we've got sites in Africa where potentially like clean water and sanitation would be more important, but then sites in Scotland maybe less so.
Yeah.
So just interested to know how you kind of.
Yeah, because and also with that, it's like when you pick 3 or 4, it doesn't mean that like you could say like if you have that distinction, you could say, okay, we're picking climate action just as an overall one, and then we subcategorize it in it means this for Scotland, means this for Africa. Instead of picking land, life, and water, for example, you could say we combine it because for us, the SDGs are not the end all definition of a 13. It's just that we have a category of focus. So it depends on like how much you pick. If it's like 5, then maybe 14 and 15 could be combined in 13 that way.
Yeah. Which 4 SDGs did you choose?
We have climate action, quality education. There's one with equality. I don't know. They also had
I can't read them.
reduced inequality and sustainable cities. Because we have a development part as well. So yes, those are the 4. Well, and we had 5. And then I said, no, we had to do. There was one other one, I can't remember. But the climate action, the reduced, oh no, good health and well-being. Sorry, yeah. So we have climate action, good health and well-being, and reduced inequalities is the most important. The quality education. So we have a corporate given department. So we kind of chose that one because we do a lot of work in that. But for the main PE part, it's those 3 are the most important. Yeah. I need to know them by hand. Yeah.
Could please record it in the first year to go talk that work. What advice you give going so those are achievable and measurable?
I think they should start. Like my lesson learned is like as soon as you get people starting, then every year you can challenge. So I'm pretty open to saying like it's okay, you can start. Even if I sometimes see people pick a compliant goal, I could be like harsh and say like that's not a right goal. But sometimes if I know they're coming from nothing, it actually helps to say like, okay, you can go from gray to green energy. That's fine for this year. Because then they have like, an achievement to make. And then, so it's kind of getting them to do it first and then challenge them. So sometimes, although I've been stressing it has to be an impact, yes, I will always try to do that. But if for the first year they only switch energy, it's fine, because then they start moving the needle. I think that's the most important. And with benchmarking, we are part of the EDCI. But to be honest, I think only this year we have enough qualitative, like high-end data from our companies to really make a benchmark to make it make sense. But initially, just get them to do it. Like, that's the hard part. I think sometimes it's harder to get from 0 to 1 than from 1 to 100. So getting them to the 1 is actually the most important part.
It's a good soundbite. Someone should write that down. Any more? I have a quick question.
Yeah, sure.
I guess. So how often will they change their SDGs? So it sounds like they kind of come in, and also like do you kind of know? So for example, the painting, like do you kind of have an idea of like I bet it should be these 3, and then they come to you with their own 3, and then like how does that kind of
I'm
work?
pretty open to it because I
Yeah.
really want them to have like in that sense, Iger is pretty very involved and hands off at the same time. It also has to feel like it's their choice. We would never want to imply anything on them, because then again, you can like also be like, oh, so they really have to pick their three. I mean, we can have discussions about it. But in general, I always believe they really know their own business much more than I do. So it's more that I challenge them within the SDGs about their goals.
Okay.
So, because I don't really mind if they pick 9 or 10, to be honest. I don't know if I can't read it.
Yeah.
Or like, for me, it's more like you have to pick one and then it just gives you a language to build upon.
Mhm.
But the goals within, they kind of need to make sense. And that's something we can, well, I hope help them with, not only challenge, but kind of help them with picking. But most people have like 13, just like we have. 3 is always very important, and reduced inequality. So we have lots of similarities.
I need glasses. I don't know.
Yeah, first it is climate action.
Yeah.
That one I agree on is good health and well-being and reduced inequalities. Like lots of companies work on diversity, lots of companies work on like, having their employees, healthy and satisfied, and everybody is kind of wanting to do something for the environment. So
Yeah.
you see them a lot.
I imagine they all kind of end up overlapping
They do.
anyway. So
Yeah, because sometimes they will also come with a question like, can I pick this one or that one? To be honest, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's more about just have, like you also, because I didn't answer that one, like it gives you a framework to work with for 3 to 5 years. It's also, I want it to be a long-term thing. So don't change them. Or you shouldn't be able to change them within a year,
yeah.
because then it was just a low-hanging fruit chick in the box, which is amazing, by the way, but then it's not part of the
Yeah.
long-term sustainable strategy. So shouldn't change too much.
Perfect. Any other questions? No? Then we will head into our next roundtable.